Welcome, welcome back. I'm with another chapter reading. I'm a little hoarse, but we're gonna push through this. I'm gonna get my voice right, and you should know what's next. I am the nasty pastor. Please go like, share, subscribe. Always, please do a comment. Challenge some of this. Please. Got me? Let's dialogue. Let's build. Let's put some awareness in the world. We have a lot of young people, and I'm not going to just blame the young people. We have a lot of older people, elderly people, don't know their history, don't know it at all. They know their family tree history, but they don't know the ancestors before the ancestors they know of. And see, that's the part that's tricky, because it gets to the point where that you question some things. It gets to the point that some of the things you have seen, some of the things you have been told make sense and don't make sense. So I say this to you again, I'm back with another chapter reading of Stolen Legacy. And the author of this beautiful book, this wonderful book, is George G.M. James. It's a lot about stolen legacy, you know what I mean, that the black community should get knowledge of, should seek knowledge of. We had the Jews, we had whatever culture tried to invade Africa, Upper Africa, South, North, West, East. If we won, they was our slaves. They was our prisoners of war, POW. So I say this to you. The Jews may have built ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, but in return, the black community, us Africans, built America. All these infrastructures, these buildings, we built. Got me? It's about time for the curse on the black community to be erased. The stigma in the black community to be erased. You're powerful. You are somebody. You feel me? You come from a bloodline of brilliant, intelligent people. Put some respect in you. Put some respect in your ancestors. Because see, a lot of people look at us and think we have no home training. A lot of people look at us and see us as animals, wild animals. I'm a human like you are human. I may not have a lot of patience as you have, as a pit bull, as a wild bull, as a cougar, jaguar, lion. I may not have, patience. But understand this. Patience is something that grows in you. We're not all going to be respected. We're not all going to respect the other culture. But what we can do and how we can start this, let's respect ourselves. Because if you respect yourself, you're not going to tolerate disrespect from someone else, right? So if you check the disrespect in a respectful way, it ain't going to ever happen again. Anywho, let's get into this last chapter of the introduction. And bear with me. Okay, we're here. Okay, let me make sure. Yeah, this will be the last chapter reading of the introduction of Stolen Legacy, and I believe where I left off is right here. Similarly, every school board believes that when he hears or reads the names of the four cardinal virtues, he is hearing or reading names of virtues determined by Plato. Nothing has been more misleading, for the Egyptian mystery system contained 10 virtues, and from this source Plato copied what have been called the four cardinal virtues: justice, wisdom, temperance, and courage. You get them. You get them four, right? You got it? Come on, justice. Come on now. That's what I'm trying to do. I would like for you to help me give our culture some justice. This has been wronged. Some people up under this flag, some people up under this culture have led this wrong. Get me? Wisdom. Share your knowledge. Wisdom deal with facts. Share it. Stop being scared to uplift your brother, your sister, your cousin. You get me? Sometimes you will find out that you have more wisdom than your elders. You could help change some things in their life that's hindering them. Temperance. That means patience. You got what I'm saying? You got me? You have a temperament for things. Then the last one, courage. You know what I mean? You got to put your gasoline drawers on it and jump in the fire. You got me? Anywho, let's finish on with this reading. It is indeed surprising how for centuries the Greeks have been praised by the Western world for intellectual accomplishments which belong without a doubt to the Egyptians or the peoples of North Africa. Another noticeable characteristic of Greek philosophy is the fact that most of the Greek philosophers used the teachings of the Pythagoras as their model, and consequently, they have introduced nothing new in the field of philosophy. Included in the Pythagorean system, we find the doctrines of opposites, harmony, fire, mind, since it is composed of fire atoms, immortality expressed as transmigration of souls, the summum bonum, or the purpose of philosophy. Tight, right? You get it, right? You get all this, right? See, I found out a long time ago when I was first reading the book Stolen Legacy back in the early 90s that every culture Africa went to war, went to battle with, if they won, the first thing that they invaded was our libraries. You know, after they took control of the land, you know what I mean, they went into our libraries to figure out our knowledge, to get our wisdom. Understand? You get why I say there's a lot of things, a lot of firsts in Africa that traveled across this whole world, this whole rock. And these, of course, are reflected in the systems of Heraclitus, Parmenides, Democritus, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Those were your philosophers back then. I'm very familiar with Plato and Socrates. I'm very familiar with them. I've read, and Aristotle. Those three I've read books about. I've read some of their thoughts, their ideas. And you know what I mean? Like I said, this book just proved, if you go back to the, I think it's part 2. It might be in part 1 where I'm explaining that these Greek philosophers, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, they was killed by the Greeks and the Romans. They found out later that they went into Upper Africa, up into Egypt, up in Kemet, and took how we saw and thought about things and took it over there in Europe and claimed it to be theirs. The next thing that is peculiar about Greek philosophy is its use in literature. The Egyptian mystery system was the first secret order of history, and the publication of its teachings was strictly prohibited. Got me? Now, if you couldn't teach Kemet philosophy, ancient Egypt philosophy, that means it was outlawed, right? See, I never talked about the culture I was studying because it was outlawed. I was told it was never to be talked about. I was told you study. I was told you seek knowledge of self. Got me? Knowledge of self. So to fast track or to fast forward, when I spoke out, last year, maybe 2022, it was because I seen this out of control. When I really sat down and read the 42 laws of mind, I said, okay, I understand what's going on. A lot of these elders or a very persuasive young person have persuaded a lot of these young people to read the 42 laws of mind. And the only thing that stands out to them is the thievery part. They feel they can take this from you, take that from you, because you're not a god, because you're not under their culture, and that's not life. That's not how we're going to do this. We're going to respect people. The Egyptian mystery system was the first secret order of history, and the publication of its teachings was strictly prohibited. This explains why initiates like Socrates did not commit to writing their philosophy, and why the Babylonians and Chaldeans, who were very closely associated with them, also refrained from publishing those teachings. We can at once see how easy it was for an ambitious and even envious nation to claim a body of unwritten knowledge which would make them great in the eyes of the primitive world. The absurdity, however, is easily recognized when he remembered that the Greek language was used to translate several systems of teaching which the Greeks could not succeed in claiming. Such were the translation of Hebrew scriptures into Greek, called the Septuagint, and the translation of the Christian Gospels, Acts, and the epistles in Greek, still called the Greek New Testament. It is only the unwritten philosophy of the Egyptians translated into Greek that has met with such an unhappy fate, a legacy stolen by the Greeks. On account of reasons already given, I have been compelled to handle the subject matter of this book in the way it has been handled, namely with a frequency of repetition, because it is the method of Greek philosophy to use a common principle to explain several different doctrines, and the quotation and analysis of doctrine, because it is the object of this book to establish the Egyptian origin, and this cannot be so satisfactorily done if the doctrines are not presented. Greek philosophy is somewhat of a drama whose chief actors were Alexander the Great, Aristotle and his successors in the Peripatetic school, and the Roman Emperor Justinian. Alexander invaded Egypt and captured the royal library at Alexandria and plundered it. You get me? It was over once Alexander the Great conquered, because see, there was other cultures came in, took a piece. You got me? And all of them over in Europe. It was mostly the Europeans coming into Africa trying to take the knowledge. You got me? Aristotle made a library of his own with plundered books, while his school occupied the building and used it as a research center. Finally, Justinian, the Roman emperor, abolished the temples and schools of philosophy, another name for the Egyptian mysteries which the Greeks claim as their product, and on account of which they have been falsely praised and honored for centuries by the world as this greatest philosophers and thinkers. This contribution to civilization was really and truly made by the Egyptians and the African continent, but not by the Greeks or the European continent. We sometimes wonder why the people of African descendants find themselves in such a social plight as they do, but the answer is plain enough.
Had it not been for this drama of Greek philosophy and its actors, the African continent would have had a different reputation and would have enjoyed a status of respect among the nations of the world. This unfortunate position of the African continent and its peoples appears to be the result of misrepresentation upon which the structure of race prejudice has been built. The historical word opinion that the African continent is backward, that its people are backward, and that their civilization is also backward. I say this to you, I don't remember reading that part. I really don't. I really, really don't. I don't remember. Let me just say this. I don't know if this is the original literature of George G.M. James about stolen legacy. Like I explained in the first part one of the introduction, the book was small. You know, the width right, but the book was smaller, the pages, you know what I mean, it was thinner. So I just say this, you know, I really say this to you because it's telling you now, it's giving it to you now that, you know, there was a stigma put on Africa. You know, if you're in Richmond, Virginia, or you're visiting Richmond, Virginia, if you go down to the Devil's, what they call it, the Devil, it's a grave where the Africans were buried back then. The African slaves was buried, you know what I mean? And they called them devils. You feel me? They call these Africans devils. It's written down there on the little plaques that you could read. You could read about what that place was. It was a jail, you know what I mean? It's where they housed the slaves, sold the slaves, killed the slaves. You understand me? So I say this to you, you know what I mean? There's a curse put on the black community, the African community. Let's erase it. You know what I mean? It's you know, I know you might say to yourself, how I'm gonna erase this when this is the way I feel about life? How am I gonna erase this when this is all I know? I don't know nothing else. Well, I say this, you know what I mean? Re-educate yourself without being persuaded. You feel me? If that's all you know and that ain't getting you nowhere, then it's time to educate yourself in something else. Finding the dishonesty in the movement of the publication of a Greek philosophy becomes very glaring. When we refer to the fact purposely that by calling the theorem of the square on the hypotenuse the Pythagorean theorem, it has concealed the truth for centuries from the world. Excuse me. Who ought to know that the Egyptians taught Pythagoras and the Greeks what mathematics they knew. I want to mention here that among the many books which I found helpful in my present work are The Intellectual Adventure of Man and the Egyptian Religion by Professor Henry Frankfurt, and The Mediterranean World in Ancient Times by Professor Ever Sanford. Well, that's the end of this. And when we resume, I probably will get at the aims of the book, which will be short, or I'll make that an extra and just jump straight into chapter 1. You know, I say this, you know what I mean? This right here, this introduction of this book should have explained a lot to you. Just the last part of this book tells you how intelligent we was, tells you how civilized the black community, the African community was. We taught the Europeans, you understand me? They had to come into Africa to learn how to, and I can be wrong, but I'm gonna say this, to wipe their bottom. You understand what I'm saying? Something that simple, to wipe it the right way. You feel me? To clean yourself. How you build this structure, this building, this house, this hut, and make it stand firm. You feel me? They didn't even know how to count. Understand me? Come on, man. We were geniuses. What done happened to us? Look, I am the nasty pastor. Please go like, share, subscribe, comment, and please go share it. Shoot, make a movie night out of this. It ain't gonna take no more than about 20, 30 minutes of your time. If it's, if you don't make it a movie night, make it an educational night. Anywho, I am the nasty pastor. Remember this, if don't nobody else love you, I'ma love you. I'm out.